Hello everyone. Hope you all are having an amazing day. Today we will be learning about Azure Data Factory. This session is conducted by a cloud expert having more than 15 plus years of industry experience.
But before we begin the session, make sure to subscribe to our channel and also hit on the bell icon so that you will never miss an update from us.
Data generated by several applications of products is increasing exponentially day by day. As the data is coming from many sources, it is very difficult to manage it. Using Azure Data Factory, one can analyze, transform, publish, and visualize the data. Professionals with Azure skills are in huge demand. So, what are you waiting for? Buckle up and get started. Here is the agenda of the day. Firstly, we will begin with Introduction to Azure. Post that, we will tell you what is Azure Data Factory. After that, we will be learning about flow process of Data Factory. Then we'll move on to Integration Runtime in Azure Data Factory. Post that, we will see how to create a new data factory. Then after that, we will introduce you to data lakes. In that, we will tell you what is data lake and why do we need it. Then finally, we have covered a hands-on demo on creating pipelines using Data Factory to give you a better understanding of the subject. So guys, this is the agenda. Now let's begin.
Azure Data Factory. What is Azure Data Factory? Data generated by several applications and product is increasing exponentially. So we all know that we are living in the world of data. So all the different applications which are running, they are generating millions and millions of data. Azure Data Factory, or we lovingly call it as ADF, falls under the identity domain of services in the SEO, which is nothing but a search engine optimization catalog, and it is cloud-based integration services. Basically, it works on data. It orchestrates and automates the movement or transformation of data. So ADF, or Azure Data Factory, is a code-free ETL or ELT solution, which is completely based off cloud. You don't need any hardware. You don't need any licenses. You don't need any kind of setup. You quickly can go in without using a single line of code. You can perform your data movement as well as orchestration. As data is coming from number of different products, to analyze and store all this data, we need a powerful tool. Azure Data Factory helps us here. How does Azure Data Factory help us? Storing data with the help of Azure Data Lake Store. So Data Lake Store is nothing but a Hadoop compliant storage. We have the Azure Data Lake Store, which is Microsoft implementation of Data Lake Store. We can analyze the data. We can transform the data with the help of pipelines. A pipeline is a component in Data Factory which groups the related activities to perform a task. We'll see that in detail. Publishing the organized data. Visualize the data with third-party application like Spark or Hadoop. So Data Factory has support for Spark baked in inside as out-of-box solution. Now, how does a Data Factory pipeline flow? So you can see that this is an architecture diagram of a Data Factory pipeline. So first and foremost, we have the input data set. What is an input data set? It's nothing but the data which we have in our data store. We need this to be processed. So we pass the data through the pipeline. So input data set is nothing but the source data that we capture, which is coming from the source. Then we have the pipeline. So this is the building block of Data Factory. It basically performs an operation on the data that transforms the data, which could be anything from just data movement or some kind of transformation. So it can happen that you get your data from a source and you want to push it to a destination without doing any kind of transformation. So let's take an example that you get your data from an FTP location. And from that FTP, you want to push it to a SQL database without doing any kind of transformation. You can do that. On top of that, if you want to do any kind of transformation, you can do transformation right from Azure Data Factory using the power of Apache Spark, and then push the data to your destination from source. Then we have the output data set. This contains the data that is in a structured format, as it has already been transformed in the pipeline storage. It is then given to linked services such as Data Lake, Blob Storage, or SQL. So output data set, I won't say that every time it is structured. You can work with semi-structured output data also. So you can work with JSON, XML, and other semi-structured data set. And then you can push this for your consumption. Now, where do you want to push your data? Of course, you can push it in multiple locations. You can store it in a data lake store, you can store it in a blob storage, or you can store it in a SQL. Now, to establish the connection with these sinks, we use something that we call as link services. Then, what is a link service? Link services store the information which is very important when it comes to connecting to external data sources. So link services are nothing but the username, password, server name, database name. So the connectivity informations are stored in your link services. So there can be different types of link services. You can store it in a data lake store, you can store it in a blob store, or you can store in a SQL. It's not just limited to these three. There are way more link services that we can access in Azure Data Factory. Then we have the gateway. So this is an important concept. What is a gateway? This is called as gateway, or we call it as a data gateway, or we call as a integration runtime. This connects to our on-premises data to the cloud. So we do not need a client installed on our on-premises system so that we can connect to Azure cloud. Now, there can be scenarios where you're getting your data from an on-premises source, or you want to push the data to an on-premises destination. In either way, since Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based approach, you have to set up a connectivity to the on-premises source or the destination. So what we have to do is we have to provide a networking handshake. Using the data gateway or the integration runtime, we can establish the connectivity between on-premises as well as cloud. Finally, we have the cloud. Our data can be analyzed and visualized with a number of different analytics software such as Spark, R, Hadoop, and so on. So this is the end way where we have analyzed our data, transformed our data, and finally we want to consume it. That's also possible using Data Factory. So why should we use Azure Data Factory? So there are just a couple of things which are listed here. It can be more than that, way more than that. Improves productivity with shorter time to market. Data Factory is a tool and it doesn't have any kind of language in it. So what we can do is the learning curve is very easy in here. You don't have to do much of learning. So you can very quickly grasp the concepts of Data Factory. So the time to market reduces drastically. It reduces overhead costs because it's a one-stop shop where you can perform your data movement as well as data transformation. So you don't need a lot of things to get involved, a lot of products to purchase. So the cost is very less, and cost is actually very less. If we see the pricing of Azure Data Factory, it's very, very cheap. Transfers data using pre-built connectors. So a lot of connectors, if I'm not wrong, currently we have support for around 70 connectors, which is out of the box from Data Factory. So you don't need to create any custom connector. Of course, you can create, but most of the connectors that we use are pre-built in Data Factory. Integrates data cost effectively because the pipelines and the process is such user-friendly, we can very easily save cost. Gets continuous integration and delivery, which is CI/CD. So we can easily connect with a Git repository and set up a CI/CD pipeline with ADF. It's very easy and works the way we want. So we can do our own custom logic in our Data Factory so that we get to know how we want to do this. It improves productivity with shorter time to market. It develops simple and comprehensive ETL and ELT process without coding or maintenance. So as I said, ADF is not just an ETL where we have extract, transform, and load. On top of that, we can perform ELT as well, where it's extract, then load, and then transform. So it doesn't require any coding or any kind of maintenance. It's completely code-free. It ingests, moves, prepares, transforms, and processes our data in a few clicks and completes our data modeling within the accessible visual environment. So Data Factory comes with its own canvas where you can quickly design your transformation logic and your overall program flow very easily. The managed Apache Spark services takes care of code generation and maintenance. So as I said, Data Factory has support for native Apache Spark out of the box. And the good thing is that this Apache Spark is a managed environment. So you don't have to bother about the infrastructure. You don't have to bother about the setup, the configuration, the maintenance of the Spark environment. It's completely managed by Microsoft. You can create your own programming logic without writing code. Please remember, we don't need to write any code, and you can use the power of Spark right from Data Factory. Reduces overhead cost. When migrating our SQL Server DB to cloud, it preserves our ETL processes and reduces operational cost and complexity. So it's kind of similar like we had in SSIS. If we want to migrate on-premises data to Azure, Data Factory is the de facto choice currently. It does everything with breeze, but it's not just limited to moving on-premises data to cloud. There are more things that we can do in Data Factory. It rehosts on-premises SSIS packages in the cloud with minimal effort using Azure SSIS integration runtime. ETL in Azure Data Factory provides us with familiar SSIS tools. So people who are coming from SSIS background, they'll be happy to know that Azure Data Factory is very easy to learn if you're coming from SSIS. The learning curve is very, very simple. You don't need to spend much time in relearning a lot of things. Most of the things will be very familiar if you're coming from SSIS background. And also, if you're still not convinced that you want to refactor your SSIS packages into ADF pipelines, you still have support to run your SSIS packages from ADF. So you can have your existing SSIS DTSX packages, which can be run from ADF. Transfer data using pre-built connectors. It gives access to the ever-expanding portfolio of 90 plus pre-built connectors, including Azure Data Services, on-premises data sources, Amazon S3 and Redshift, and Google BigQuery at no additional cost. So as I said more than 70, but it's actually more than 90, and it's increasing every day. So once we move and see a hands-on, you can see that there are so many pre-built connectors which are available right out of the box from Data Factory. So you can use Amazon S3 bucket, you can use Google BigQuery, Apache Impala, Azure Store. A lot of things are available pre-built out of the box in Data Factory. Integrate data cost effectively. It integrates our data using a serverless tool with no infrastructure to manage. As I said, this is a code-free, cloud-based ETL solution, which is a complete PaaS service and managed by Azure. For Azure Data Factory, we need to pay only for that what we use, and we can scale up the elastic capabilities as our data grows. Again, since it's cloud-based and it's backed up by Azure, it has a pay-as-you-go model. So whenever you're using Data Factory, till the point that you're using, the quantity that you're using, you only pay for that. And whenever you need to grow, scale up and scale down. It transforms data with speed and scalability using the Apache Spark engine in Azure Databricks. So as I said, this also has support for Spark infrastructure with you without bothering about the Spark setup and anything. So you can run big data also with Azure Data Factory. Works the way we want. Data Factory provides a single hybrid data integration service for all skill levels. We can use the visual interface to write our own code in Python, .NET, or ARM to build pipelines. We can add any processing services into the managed data pipelines or insert custom code as a processing step in any pipeline. So if you still want to use code, you have support to run your code in either Python or .NET or ARM, which is Azure Resource Manager. And still, if you're not convinced, you still have support to create custom components. So you can write your custom code and still use your pipelines. Gets continuous integration and delivery connectivity, so CI/CD. It continuously monitors and manages pipeline performance alongside applications from a single console with Azure Monitor. So again, as this is part of the Azure suite, so you can easily integrate this with Azure Monitor, and you can visualize what is going on inside your Data Factory pipeline. It integrates our DevOps process using the built-in support for pipeline monitoring. So this can very easily be integrated with Azure DevOps. So you just have to connect it to Azure Git or a normal Git repository, and you can create your very simple and quick CI/CD pipelines for a continuous integration and continuous deployment. If we prefer a less programmatic approach, we can use the built-in visual monitoring tools and alerts. So not just it has support for Azure Monitor, Azure Data Factory itself comes with an inbuilt monitoring. So it is native to Azure Data Factory. If you do not want to use Azure Monitor, you can use the inbuilt monitoring tool, which is available inside ADF. Okay, now we're going to see what is an integration runtime in Azure Data Factory and what are types of IR that we have. So what is an integration runtime in Azure Data Factory? So integration runtime, or IR, is the compute infrastructure used by Data Factory to provide the following data integration capabilities across different network environments. So IR is essentially the backbone where the infrastructure is managed by Microsoft. So using an IR, you can perform data flow, you can do data movement, you can do activity dispatch, or you can run SSIS packages. So let's see what all things we can do. So in Azure Data Factory, an activity defines the action to be performed. So these are the terminologies that we use inside Data Factory. If you hear the term activity, this means the action that you want to perform in your Data Factory pipeline. A linked service defines a target data store or a compute service, meaning that this is the place where you define your connectivity and all the other related information. An integration runtime, or IR, acts as a bridge between an activity and linked service. So this is the managed infrastructure. Now, in Azure Data Factory, we have three types of integration runtime. The simple one is the Azure Auto Resolve IR. Second one is self-hosted. And the third one is Azure SSIS IR. Now, based on your requirement, you can choose any of the IR. Okay. So this is a pictorial representation which shows the different types of integration runtimes, which can be used in combination to offer a rich data integration capabilities and network support. So typically what we do is, when we have our source and destination, which are both cloud-based, then we go for an auto resolve integration runtime or an Azure integration runtime. If you have something which requires an on-premises component, then we go for a self-hosted integration runtime. And Azure SSIS runtime is exclusive to run your SSIS packages. Now, you can use a self-hosted integration runtime to connect to cloud-based source and sink as well, but it's typically not used. So if your source and destination are both cloud-based, then we go for an Azure IR. If it involves any kind of on-premises component, then we go for self-hosted IR. Okay. Now, why we have this inside an Azure virtual network? The reason is that if you have something which is on premises, then we always should create an Azure virtual network, which will have all the network connectivity set up between your on-premises system and cloud. And using that network, we will connect via the integration runtime. And as you can see, using the Azure integration runtime, we can run Apache Spark program as well. So let's talk a little detail about the IR locations. Data Factory location is where the metadata of the Data Factory is stored and where the triggering of the pipeline is initiated. So what it means is that since Azure is a cloud-based solution, when we create any resource, you have to provide a location of that resource. Data Factory is also a resource in Azure. So when you create a Data Factory, we have to provide a location of that Data Factory. Now, whenever we create a data factory in a specific location, let's assume that I'm creating in India, since I'm based out of India. So let's say that I'm creating in a central India location. So whenever I will trigger my data factory, the metadata of the data factory will always be stored in central India, and the pipeline will start from that location. It's nothing but the physical data center where Microsoft creates your resource. Meanwhile, a data factory can access data stored and compute services in other Azure regions to move data between data stores or process data using compute services. Now, don't think that if I create my data factory in central India, I won't be able to access data which is stored in any other location. That's absolutely not correct. If you create a data factory which is based out of central India, if your data is in Japan, you can still access the data using data factory. This behavior is realized through the globally available IR to ensure data compliance, efficiency, and reduced network egress costs. Now, how does an ADF which is created in central India can access the data which is stored in Japan? That is the job of the globally available integration runtime. So this integration runtime takes care of connecting to your data and moving the data across the region, as well as maintaining all the GDPR policies along with efficiency and reduced cost. The IR location defines the location of its backend, compute, and essentially the location wherein data movement, activity dispatching, and SSIS package executions are performed. Meaning that whenever we create an integration runtime, by default, the integration runtime gets created in the same region as your data factory. But of course, you can change that from the data factory pipeline as well. It's not a requirement that the region where your data factory is, your integration runtime should also be in the same region. You can change it, of course. But what happens is, based on the region of your integration runtime, all your resources, your data movement, and everything will initiate from that location. Okay.
We'll be discussing about Azure Data Lake. Okay, so Azure Data Lake has two components within. It has storage account as well as ADLS Gen 2. So ADLS Gen 2 is a jazzy word in the market as well, and then it's really a resource or a service offering which is given to you by Microsoft Azure. So what is the purpose of this storage account? So when I say data lake, right, just consider data lake to be either storage account or ADLS Gen 2. Before talking about the definition, I will tell you what is that resource. So storage account can also be considered as a lake account. So storage account, you see, right, this is itself the two flavors within. So you have two flavors within the storage account itself. One is the general storage account and another is the ADLS Gen 2. So while creating, I'll show you both the flavors. But just consider when I'm talking about lake, it can be either storage account or ADLS Gen 2. Okay, so what is data lake account? So data lake can help you to store any kind of data. So it says that you can store any kind of blobs. When I say blob, right, blob can be CSV file, blob can be Parquet file, ORC, MPEG file, any particular file which can come in our mind. You can actually go ahead and save that data in data lake. And the good thing about data lake is, even if you don't have, you did not provide any instruction about while saving the data, right? Let's say that data size is of 1 GB, or let's say it's of 10 GB size, right? It will internally split the data into multiple chunks and then save it in a distributed manner. And when you extract the data again from the lake, it will be again a distributed read for you. So that's why you see a better performance when reading as well as when writing. So that's the beauty about data lake. And on the data restriction, data size restriction, there is basically no restriction in the size of data. So more the amount of data you save, obviously you are paying more. That you should always keep in mind. But if you save less, if you store less, you will basically pay less as well. And the costing of storage account, so just be mindful about this. Costing of storage account is just not related to storage cost. It also deals with the read cost, write cost as well. So let's say that I have stored my data once. Okay, let's say I have stored some 10 GB of data. Now I'm just not paying for that 10 GB of storage. and let's say I have a lot of customers who keep on reading the data from my storage account. So that read is also attributed within the storage account cost. And when I'm writing information to the storage account, that time also I'm incurring cost. So there are three components to the storage account cost. One is the storage cost, one is read cost, and another is write cost. These three components. Okay. So I will just iterate through the theory in just 5 minutes or so, and then I will move on to the portal. Okay. So just watch out here. So it says the main objective of building a data lake is to offer a unrefined view of data to data scientists. With the increase in data volume, data quality, and metadata, the quality of analysis also increases. Data lake offer business agility. Then machine learning and artificial intelligence can be used to make profitable prediction. Data lake gives a 360-degree view of customers and makes analysis more robust. Okay, these are the just the definitions of data lake. Right? I'll just give you in simpler language. Now, in today's world, if you are using SQL database, right, for storing data as well as doing reports, you can actually do the same from lake as well. So instead of keeping the data in stage format, a stage I generally call it as raw format. Okay. So in SQL world, you will call something as staging. In lake world, we call that as raw file. So let's say customer is providing me some file, I'll store as is into my storage account, and I will call that as a raw file. And I start processing the raw file, and into there are multiple. Okay, no problem. So this is the lake architecture. Okay, so you might have heard about lake house architecture. At least you might have heard about this that terminology, right? Lake house architecture. So I'll just explain about the lake architecture. Okay. So when data comes in from external system, right? Let's say upstream. This is the upstream where I'm getting the data. So I store in my lake in raw. I'll call that as a raw zone. Okay, and then I do some data quality checks, and then I store it in gold layer. I call this as gold because only when data quality succeeds, I will move the data from raw to gold. So what is the data quality check? Let's say I want to count the number of records before moving it to the gold layer. If the count is not nearby compared to the last raw file, right, then I will discard the I'll stop the processing. I'll not move the raw data to gold data. In a way, I'm actually providing more security checks before even moving to gold. Now I'll tell you more. Okay, let's say I'm moving it to publish layer. I'll tell you what is publish. Okay, publish is something which your downstreams can refer to. Okay, so what I'm doing is, let's say some people are doing dimension modeling in a SQL database, right? So in publish layer also, I can keep all the files in different, let's say CSV files or Parquet files. I'll save those dimension and then fact tables within the publish layer. Okay, and then that will be the source of truth for my downstream application. So if I'm maintaining the project, there will be some upstream, there will be some downstream. So when I am receiving data from upstream, my duty is to make sure that the data accurateness is maintained, data integrity is maintained. And once it is maintained, I will move the data to publish layer, which is our fact and dimension. And then my downstream can be my reporting application also. Okay, just giving you a simplified answer. My downstream can be my reporting application, or my downstream can be some other projects who are looking up to my data. Once data is there in publish, you can actually share it with others. But you call raw as staging. You just consider staging as a schema. Okay, here I can consider raw as a folder. Under that raw folder, I can place multiple files. So raw is relatable to staging layer. And then from staging, you might move it to an intermediate layer. Okay, where I will just do some data quality checks and then move the data to the intermediate in SQL, which I call here as gold. And then I move the gold layer to publish. Let's say I want to perform some slow changing dimension 1, 2, etc. I want to formulate some dimension and fact tables. So I do some kind of transformations all over here. You also do the same thing and move it to the main table. So I call this as a publish layer here. So this is basically the lake architecture. If you have not heard about this, this will be very common when you appear for any interview in data engineering, right? People will ask you what is the lake architecture. You can explain the same fundamentals. Okay, so if I'm managing a particular project, right, so I will have some upstream. When I say upstream, the project which is giving me data is upstream. Okay, and downstream is the the subscribers who are actually looking up to my data, my project's data. So I will receive data from upstream and I'll provide data to my downstream. Okay, let's forget about push and pull mechanism. Who is pulling, who is pushing data? We'll not talk about that. My focus is to just explain the data lake architecture. So I'll just try to correlate it with SQL once more. So try to understand. Draw is nothing but staging. Staging we understand, right? The way upstream provides me the data, I keep the same thing in the same format. So if I may be receiving it in a CSV file, I may have a staging table where I store the data without doing any kind of transformation. That is staging layer for me. So in Lake, I call that as raw. What is gold? I think as a part of transformation, you might be doing this in current world, but you have to invest time more on data quality checks as well. So when I move data from raw to gold, I have to ensure that I'm doing data quality checks. So example of data quality check is, let's say I'm expecting that a particular column should have only non-nullable column. It's a non-nullable column. It should not have any null entry. So I will do data quality check for that column. And similarly, there might be some 100 rules. If all the 100 rules satisfies, then only I will move the data from raw to gold. That is the example of data quality. So you can adopt this in any technology. If you are using SQL also, you can adopt this particular approach. But in when you are using lake architecture, right, this will be a common practice. So people will definitely ask you what are the data quality checkpoints you're managing. So once this is done, it is the publish is as good as the main tables in your SQL table. So in SQL you might have managed dimension and fact table, right? So I will just put all those. I'll perform all the transformation from gold layer, and then I'll publish all of them to the published layer in the form of dimension files and then fact files. And then my downstream, right, who are looking up to my data can refer to the published layer. My downstream need not look into the raw gold. I will not provide anyone access to raw and gold. I will just receive data, do data massaging till publish, and then we'll send it to the downstream. So what is happening? I have explained you about the entire flow, right? It is just a visual representation of what I have just mentioned. So you can do batch ingestion as well as real-time ingestion. So in between, you can store it within the storage account, and you can do data management services, which I mentioned. Data quality checks is one of the data management service. MDM is nothing but master data management, where you can store some master files, or you can I call that as dimension file. You can call the same thing as master data management for storing the dimension files. And the same terminology. Okay, workflow management is nothing but we transform from raw to gold to publish. That is the workflow management. And what is the processing tier? So I'll be using data lake, sorry, Azure Databricks in order to process all these things, right? So my processing tier is nothing but the gold tier as well as the published tier, where I have processed the data and moved to the gold or published layer. And you can do in-memory operation, multiple processing, multi-parallel processing. So because I will be using the capabilities of storage account, right, the reads and writes are already parallel. And with using Databricks or data flow, I can do all the in-memory based processing. So what do you mean by in-memory based processing? Hadoop used to do all the disk-based processing. So it used to incur a lot of charges on IO as well. So it used to save the intermediate result in hard disk, and when the subsequent process needs the data, again it will do take the same data from disk and take it into the memory. So that's basically a IO operation. But when I'm using Databricks or when I'm using data flow, all the intermediate result also will get saved within the memory itself. Memory is nothing but RAM. Okay, and once everything is done, distillation tier is nothing but, again, you can call that as a publish layer. Okay, once entire processing is done, then you can save them in the HDFS storage, which is nothing but our storage account. Okay, and once you have done that, your downstream can maybe using SQL, maybe using some map reduce operation, so they can pull data, or you might have some reporting requirement where you might do some insight based reporting. Okay, so that is basically the lake architecture. So the terminology which I have mentioned, right, is up to date in the market. You can hear about what is raw, gold, publish. The same thing is mentioned over here.
Now let's see how do we create pipelines using Data Factory. All right, guys. So creating a pipeline basically is listed as one of the steps in performing your ETL solution, guys. Now we have a school database. Let's say, I mean, we are trying to extract some data from the database. We will be extracting, and if something has to be processed, then it will be processed, right? Then it will be stored in somewhere. I mean, wherever we want. Now let's see the steps for. I mean, so basically, guys, as we are seeing in this on the screen, so we have your database, I mean SQL database, and we are trying to extract some data from the database. So we will be extracting, and something has to be processed, then it will be processed and then stored in the data lake. So these are just some sample databases, guys. It can be anything. It can be happen between your blob storage to SQL, or SQL to blob storage, or your blob to data lake, or data lake to blob. It can be anything. Your data source can be anything. There is no specific restriction that your source should be something or your destination should be something specific. It can be anything. All right, so these are the steps for creating your pipeline using Data Factory. The first thing we will be doing is we will be just creating your linked service for your SQL Server database, or whatever. I mean, I have taken in my case, I have taken the example as SQL to data lake. So that's why I'm just showing the steps for creating the linked services. I mean just steps for creating this ETL process. So we will be creating the link service for SQL Server database as the source database, and then we will be creating link service for the target database, which is in our case it is Azure Data Lake Store, and then we will be creating the data set for the data extraction. This one we will be just doing an author and monitor tab, guys, which once you will be creating the data factory, you will be I mean you can just access that author and monitor tab. There you can just go to the visual, I mean you can just go to the author and monitor, and there you will be having this all these options for creating the linked services and creating the data set for your data extraction process. And then you can just create a data set for your data saving, and then we can just create a pipeline, guys, and then we can add some copy activity or any raw activity. And then, guys, at finally, so the main advantage of this data factory, we can schedule this pipeline just by adding trigger. So basically, guys, you can just schedule this your, I mean, let's say, I mean, whatever transformation you have, you can just schedule that on some specific basis. We can transform them on weekly basis. We can transform that on monthly basis. We can transform that on day-to-day basis. You can just transform it whatever and however in whatever way you want. You can just transform in that way. All right. So guys, now let me just show you one project where we are going to perform today. So guys, now today I'm just going to demonstrate you a project where we will be identifying the videos in the selected channel from YouTube that is getting maximum traffic. So let me explain this problem statement to you guys. So basically, guys, we are having we are having a YouTube channel. So in the YouTube channel there are various channels, right? So let's say there is a company. So the company wants to promote its advertisements. So in order to promote its advertisements, so it wants to promote its advertisement on the channel which is getting the utmost traffic. Okay, so how does the channel knows that the specific channel is getting the utmost traffic? So guys, for knowing that, I mean that company needs to put a developer who is an Azure Data Factory specialist, where he will be automating the list of channels which is getting the more, I mean which are getting the utmost traffic at specific time. So he can just put a trigger for every 5 minutes. So for every 5 minutes the traffic is, let's say the traffic is loading, so every 5 minutes the list gets changed, and based on the list this company can promote its advertisements. So this is the project we are going to do, guys. So in our project we are just considering the two data sets, which will be where the data set one will be our first interval. Let me just show you the data sets. So these are the data sets which we are going to perform. Let me just open this data sets for you guys. So these are the two data sets, guys. So where we are having video ID, video title, views, likes, dislikes, comments, and your duration in minutes. But in real time you will be getting in different format. So for your understanding purpose, we are just creating this project as a sample project. So this can be, these all things can be these are all some of the basic data which we are getting from the channels. So now let's, without wasting any time, then let's import this to our SQL database. So for creating this, let me just move to my Azure portal. All right, guys. Now, first of all, let me create a SQL server. So what I'm going to do here is, guys, so I'll be just creating my. So first of all, we'll be just creating an SQL server, and then we will be just creating some other different data store, which will be let's create data lake, and then we will be just creating pipelines just to load. I mean, make some kind of things. I mean, we can just transform the data, and then we will be just building I mean, to copy the all the data. I mean, we will be just performing a basic query. We will be just performing on that, where we will be just let me show you. So first of all, let me create a SQL server, guys. So guys, if you have a resource group, it's fine, or else you can just create a new resource group. First of all, let me create a resource group as workshop. So I'll just give my server name as YouTube source. So I'll just give my admin details, which will be Intellipaat, and then I'll just give it as. Alright, guys, let's create this server. So the deployment is taking some time, guys. Let's wait for the process. So meanwhile, let me just open my SQL Server Management Studio. Yeah, it's already open. So guys, you can also connect to this SQL Server instance using your Azure inbuilt SQL. I mean, that also you can use, or else you can use the SQL Server Management Studio just to connect your SQL Server database or anything else. Alright, guys, the deployment is completed. Now let's just go to the resource. So basically, your Azure SQL Server, Microsoft. I mean, now let's go ahead and just create the database for this. So guys, basically your Azure SQL database is a managed cloud database which is provided as a part of Microsoft Azure. So let me just create the database here. So my database name will be, let's say, SQL DB. All right. So I just don't want it to be an elastic pool. You can also create an elastic pool or a managed instance, guys. So basically there are different concepts. So basically when we talk about elastic pool, so your elastic pool is like something, nothing but a collection of your databases with some shared set of resources. I mean, which are managed using your SQL Server database server, guys. So basically, what is the benefit of using an elastic pool in Azure is that, so using with this, you can just create a single database which can be moved in and out of an elastic pool, which gives us flexibility actually. So, but we don't want that. We can just create a normal SQL database for this purpose, because cost also varies for every database whatever we are creating. So now I'll be just creating my SQL database. So you can just see the estimated cost per month whatever is shown over here. So let's create this thing. So in Azure, sometimes the deployment takes much more time, guys. Let's get it deployed. Meanwhile, let me just open the SQL server and connect it to my SSMS, which is on my local machine. Let's go to the SQL servers. There you can just find the SQL server. So YouTube source is my server which I have created now. So alright, guys. Let me just check the service settings over here. So this is my server name, guys. Using this server name, we can connect it anywhere, wherever we want. So I just wanted to connect on my SSMS portal. So here I'll be just connecting to this, guys. So I'll just connect to my database engine. So here I'll just paste my server name. So guys, here I'll be just doing it with SQL Server authentication. So my the login credentials will be the one which you have created it over while creating the SQL Server. So guys, I have created my login name as Intellipaat, right? So that's what I'm just giving it over here. So guys, I need to sign in with my Azure account for getting this client IP address. So basically our client IP address is not having the access to the server, so we need to just sign in with our Azure account, and then we need to create a firewall rule for that, enabling it. So let me log into my Azure account. Yeah, so let me add my client address. So guys, for importing or exporting an Azure SQL database with basically, I mean, without allowing Azure, I mean, for without allowing Azure services to access the server, you can just create, you can also create an Azure virtual machine, and then you can just connect to that, and then you can install SQL package, and then you can just create a firewall rule to allow that VM access to the database, and then you can export a database using SQL package. So but here what we are doing is that we are just importing, I mean, we have just created a server on Azure, and then we are just, whatever data we are having, we are just importing to our SQL, I mean, to our Azure SQL database. So let me expand the database over here. So this is my database which I have created on my Azure SQL server. So guys, let me open SQL import and export services. So with using this thing, I can import my. So guys, my source data is whatever I'm giving is Excel data, right? So let's put it in Excel data. So I'm using 2016 version. So let me put it this. So let me give the source form, I mean, path over here. All right, guys. Now destination is nothing but my SQL Azure SQL server, right? So I will just put it as my OLEDB driver for SQL server, or not this one. We have to give it as. So I'll be just giving my server name over here, and then I'll be just giving my server, I mean, details of credentials. So let me log in over here. Yeah, now let's choose this. Yeah, you can choose this over here. So this is my database which I have created on my server, right? So now I'll be just uh, going forward. So what I'm doing over here is, guys, I'm just copying the data from all of the tables to the server. So let me edit the mappings. So I just want, okay, it's already, if you want to change the data type or anything, you can just change it over here, guys. So here my data is in this, so video ID, I want it in my integer type. I don't want it in my float because all of them are integer. So I'll just put it into int, and then my views are also integer type. Views cannot be in decimals, right? So I just want to be it in integer format. And you'll, I mean, I just want everything to be integer instead of float. So I'll just change this thing. Also, you can alter these data types over using query. Also, we can do it manually also in this way. All right, guys. Now let me just go on next. Okay, I think everything is fine. Yeah, good. This should import successfully. Let's see. Yes, guys, we are good to go. So our process is very successfully done over here. So let me just query this data. So it's taking good time. So okay, meanwhile, let's just create our data factory and also data, I mean, final. So I'll for my target database, I'll just create a data lake, guys. So how do we create this data lake in this Azure? So basically, for creating data lake or blob storage, you won't be having a specific option. So you need to go to storage accounts, guys. So let's go to the storage accounts. All right. So let me just add a storage account. So it's basically your Azure Data Lake. When you talk about your Azure Data Lake, it includes the capabilities which are required to make it easy for developers or your data scientists or analysts to store the data of any size or shape. So we are just creating the data lake over here. So let me just open. So I'm just choosing the pay as you go subscription. Now already we have created the resource group. I'm just creating, I'm selecting the workshop as my resource group, and then I'm just giving my name for my storage name, which is data lake. So let me just give it as target database. So okay, it's already taken. Let's give another name. So guys, basically we are using data lake version 2, so which is the latest version. So we are putting a replication mode as read, access, geo redundant storage. That's fine. Access type we are choosing it as hot. So let me just create. All right, guys, it worked. Let's create this. So guys, you all might have a query in your mind. What is the difference between the Azure Data Lake 1 and what is this Gen 1 and Gen 2? So guys, basically here for Azure Data Lake generation 1 is the file system storage in which your data is distributed in blocks in hierarchy file system, guys. So your Azure Data Lake generation 2 contains both file system storage for performance and security, guys, and your object storage for scalability. So Azure Data Lake Analytics is also support which is not available right now because it is expired right now. So now some of the new features are updated in this thing. Let me just go to this thing. So let me choose this workshop as my resource group. I think there's some mistake which we have done, which we have not checked. So let me create it as target AL. Yeah, fine. So version 2 is this one, and this is version 1, and this is blob storage. We can just create these three services and data lake. Yeah, we are good to go. All right, guys. Now let me just check this database. Okay, we can just check it over there. Now let me just create the data factory now. So we are creating a job where we can just automate all this process to be happen. Guys, basically your data factory provides your single hybrid data integration service, guys, for all skill levels. So basically you can use the visual interface, or you can just write your own code, in any language to build the pipelines as well. You can just build the pipelines manually as well, guys. You can just put your choice of processing services into your managed data pipelines, or you can insert custom code as the processing step in your any of the pipeline. So let me just create the one data factory first. So ADF project, sorry. So let me just choose my resource group. Let me choose it as workshop. Fine. Now I don't want to enable Git. So this is already choose low, so I don't want. Just let me just do it as some different name.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of Azure by answering this question. What are the different cloud deployment models? A. Private cloud. B. Public cloud. C. Hybrid cloud. D. All of the above. Comment your answer in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
All right. So guys, if you, what is this enable Git option, guys? So basically to provide a better authoring experience. So basically Azure Data Factory allows you to configure a Git repository with either Azure repository or your GitHub. So basically Git is a version control system, guys, that allows you for easier change of tracking and collaboration. But I don't want to enable Git for this. So let me just create this thing. Alright guys, it got deployed. Let me go to the resource. So as I have already said in the presentation when I am explaining about data factory, so whenever you want to create any link services or pipelines, you will be just going to this author and monitor, guys. So in this tab we there is let me show you. Yes guys, it's open. So Let me just show you. So guys, we can just go to this manage tab, and then we can just create linked services, guys. So you can also directly create all the process at one go, but this is more, I mean, you are having this specific thing where you can just create linked services, where you can create integration runtimes. You can just do some git configuration over here, and then you can just define triggers and whatever you want. So guys, first of all, let me just create the linked services for this. So first of all, I'll be creating a linked service for my source database, which is my Azure SQL, right? So my server name is, let me check it.
Hey guys, if you're looking for an end-to-end training in Azure Data Factory, Intellipaat provides an Azure Data Factory certification training for DP200 and DP201, and you can check out those details in the description box below. Now let's continue this session.
SQL DB, let me choose as this thing, and then let me just as Intellipaat, Intel@123. Let me test the connection. Okay, let me just or else let me do it over here. So my task name is that transform the channel list. Sorry, let me just output list, YouTube channel list. So guys, here you can just run it once, or you can just run regularly on schedule. You can just trigger it every, I mean, you can do it hardly minute, or you can just do it every 1 minute, or you can just do it every hour, whatever you want. I just right now I'm not scheduling it. I'm just running it once. Let me just create this thing. So let me just choose my Azure Data. Or else let's do one thing. Let's do it with service principal ID. So I'll be just creating. I'll be just going to my app registrations. I just create a new app over here, which will be my Azure SQL. So I'll just go to certificates and secrets, guys. So here I'll just upload a new client secret, which will generate my principal key. So let me just put it as secret. Add this thing. So this is my application. You have to copy this thing, which is your key. So let me just put it in my notepad for safe side. So if you click on overview, you can just go, you can get the principal ID, which will be your application ID. So this is my application ID, right? So first of all, let me copy this thing here. Service principal ID, and the principal key is noted over here, right? And also we have to view the firewall access in Azure SQL, right? Let me just do that as well. So here I'll be adding a role or assignment, guys. So here I'll be just putting the owner. Let me just put this. Let me check this application. I mean, let me confirm this app registration name. So whether it is SQL or anything else, let me just go through the application. I think this one we have created. This one. Okay, we have to create for Azure SQL. So let me just go to that SQL server. So under the access control, I'll be just giving the access for mine. So once we are done with this, let me just text this connection. Yeah, is it deployment? Oh, let's read what is the error we are getting. YouTube source database, check the links on configuration and make the SQL Server database firewall allows the integration runtime. Okay, let's check the firewall. So we are done with the principal key and then we are done with the okay. Let me just let's check the database once. Okay. So this is a source database, right? So let me just check the access for this thing as well. Okay, we need to set that and that only it's set already. Why is it not working still? Okay. Successful. Let's create this. Alright, guys. Now link service for Azure SQL database is successful. Now create. Let's go for the step. So while loading the, I mean, source data to our target data, we just need to query. We are using including the query as well. So we are applying, I mean, some query based on this. So we want to change. I mean, we just want to the output where the views and like. I mean, here in our data set we are just considering the views and likes to be I mean where we want the traffic. So in order to just find the channels which has more traffics, so I am just querying over here where. So let me just do it. Select video id. So first of all, let me just see the schema as well. So you also can preview the data over here, guys. See, here is a preview of the data. So now let me use the query for this. So it would be something like select video id title views like we'll be selecting the views I mean video id views and let's say we want this only, video id and video title only. So okay, let's put the views also. So what is our table name over here? Worksheet, right? So let me put the field as 72. Let me some random field. Alright, guys, we got the data to that. Now let's choose the destination data store. Now my destination data store will be. Let me just create a link service for my data lake store which I have created. So my data lake store over here is storage. Let me target DL, right? So let's choose the data lake storage Gen 2 over here and then click on continue. Now let's choose the integration service one. So I'll be choosing my Azure subscription, which is pay as you go. Now my storage account name is target data lake. So I'll just choose this. So I can test the connection over here. So let me create this link service. All right, so let's click on next. So guys, for my out folder path, you can choose it. Let me just go to my storage explorer preview. So under the containers, I'll just create one container. Let me create a block container over here. Output. So guys, as I've already said, what is the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2? So basically Gen 1 is a file system storage, which your data is distributed in blocks in hierarchical file system, and your Gen 2 is which contain both file system storage to performance and security, and your object storage for your scalability, right? So let me just choose this. Okay, so I'll be just choosing the output. Yeah, so I'll be choosing this output, and then my file name will be final. So I won't define this maximum current connection blocks. Let it, you can leave it blank. Click on next. So guys, my file will be coming in text format. I just want it in text format, and my column delimiter will be comma. You can change it as well, and then row delimiter will get auto detected, which is /n, which is the ending of the line, and then I just click on next. Let me just do it. Alright guys, you can also monitor this thing. So it's still in progress guys, it's taking some time. Let's see. So we have applied manual trigger over here. You can also, as I have already said, we can schedule it minute wise, or else you can just do it hourly wise, whatever you want. You can do it in any way guys. Let's just open this thing. It's still in progress. Let's wait for getting it succeeded. So guys, basically, let me just show you. So when we talk about this triggers, guys, basically Data Factory supports three types of triggers, which is schedule trigger, which is a trigger that invokes a pipeline on your wall clockwise schedule, and another thing is tumbling window trigger, which is a trigger that operates on your periodic interval while also returning in, which is in returning state, guys. So event-based trigger, when we talk about that, a trigger that is responded to an event. So these are the three types of triggers which are supported on Azure Data Factory. I think it might be completed. Let's just refresh this and let's see. So we have already created these link services. We can directly choose it over here. So my source data is Azure SQL Database. I'll just click on next, and then I need to apply the query again. So also guys, let me show you one more thing. So we can just, or else let me wait. Okay. So let me query this thing. First of all, before querying on this, we will just try to query over here. It's too slow. Let's choose from everything. So let's start from. Let me validate this first. Okay. Uh, Okay guys, this is the output which we are getting, so it should work actually. So the query is working, that's why we got the output. So we have given some 100 channels and we are getting 1 2 3 4 5 6. These are the channels which are getting the utmost traffic as per my constraint which I have set to my dataset. So just click on next. Yeah, so I'll be choosing my data lake storage as my destination data store, which we have already defined, which is the link service. So let me choose this thing output here. With this file name, you can just test this connection. All right guys, it got validated. Now let's finish this thing. Now let me just let's move ahead to storage accounts and check whether that they got updated or not. So this is my target database and I think it should be under process still. So let me open it in storage explorer preview mode. Still getting loaded, I think. Yeah, it's successful.
So now I will go ahead and create a new data factory. Just see it here. So in the search box, I will just type in data factory, click on data factory and click on create. Okay, so you can provide the resource group name if you know about it. Let me create ESTS is fine, and then I will provide a name V2. So there are two versions if you see, right? There are two versions, V1 and V2. You should always think about choosing V2, not V1. V1 was as a part of Data Factory evolution, right? We used to code everything in JSON. So if you want to build a connection manager or link service, you have to write a small snippet in JSON. Then if you want to create a data set, again, you have to write a small JSON snippet to formulate the data set. And similarly for pipeline triggers and so on and so forth. And it was not a good experience with the developers to use V1 because everything used to be coded. But V2 is more of a drag and drop behavior, and you can just simply pull out the respective activity like for each loop or if condition, data flow, and you can simply set the properties of those before using them. But in V1, you used to actually formulate the JSON to simulate that same thing what you use now in V2. V2 is very simple to use, and you will only use V1 then when there is some kind of migration project, right? Some of the odd projects might be still having V1, but if you are building a new data factory project, definitely you are going to invest time on V2 only. And V2 is integrated with DevOps, but while V1 is not integrated with DevOps. So lot of such criteria are there. I will show you the flavor of V1 within V2 itself. Okay. Then click on next. So what we will do, this is about the GitHub integration. We are going to do the GitHub integration later. So what I will do is I will say configure Git later. I will check this box. So later what I will do is I'll set up the repository type as GitHub. I will provide the GitHub name, repository name, what is my branch and all those things. So for now I will select configure Git later. And I can choose public endpoint over here, not private endpoint, because I want to run this data factory instance on a public network, right, within Azure network. So I will use that. So if there is a particular virtual machine from there you want to run the data factory, then it makes sense to use private endpoint. So it will not make use of the internet. But if you want to use public endpoint, you can make use of internet to run this data factory. Otherwise, you have to get into the VM, which is installed within a virtual network, and then from there you get connected to internet and execute a data factory. So without going through the route of internet, you can execute data factory by using private endpoint. But our focus is to execute this with public endpoint. So if you want to encrypt your data factory, then you can do so using a customer managed key. Okay, so I don't want to do that. If you have a customer managed key, then you can put the key vault URL and the data factory would be encrypted. But you can keep it unchecked, and Microsoft is anyways encrypting. You see here, by default data is encrypted with Microsoft managed key. It's just that if customer wants to encrypt with their own key, then you need to provide one. Otherwise, you can ignore this. I have explained the significance of tags. I will explain once more. So, so you are already classifying your resource with respect to directory, active directory, then subscription, resource group, and then the resource itself. But if you want to also classify your resource in a different dimension, you can create new tags. So let's say that this is mostly used by my development team, right? So I can say development as the environment. This is kind of a key value pair. And let's say similarly, I'm doing for 5 more resources, right? Later when the billing comes up, I can understand that, okay, for the set of resources with the tag environment equal to development, this is the pricing. So this is just an extra way of representing your class set of resources. Then go to review plus create. If everything goes good, right, the validation would be successful like this, and then click on create. Once you create, you will see the notification icon that the deployment has started. So in just 30 seconds or 1 minute of time, this should be created. And you can see here that the deployment is in progress. Okay, and you can see that the deployment is succeeded. I will go to the resource. And you can see some more options here, right? So the main portion will be author and monitor. I will come here. Let's go to iterate through the list of items, right? So again, overview will comprise of what you have already created, like the name of the data factory. You can see over here, the resource group name, subscription, subscription ID, and so on and so forth. So if I want to make some changes to this data factory, right, I can see all those things here within the activity log. So as we have just created, we don't have any events to display, but as we keep using this data factory, we may see some more other log. Access control, if you want to provide access to someone or service principal or a group, you can do so over here, coming to role assignment. Let's say I have a user named as Venki, right? I want to provide Venki the reader permission on this data factory. So what I would do, I will click on add role assignment, and then let's say I'm providing reader permission to Venki. There is a user called as Venki. Click on Venki and click on save, and you can see that the role is getting added for Venki into this data factory. Yeah, and the role is added. So now if Venki logs in into Azure portal, right, he should be able to see this data factory. So if you have missed out on creating any tags, you can still come here and create additional tags. So let's say I'll say that this development resource is being used by my payments team. So what I will do is team name, and then I will say payment and apply. So once you apply, this will be a part of your tags as well. Yeah, this is added now. Now, diagnose and solve problems. Let's say you are encountering some regular problem statement, some problem you're facing it within data factory. So the first place you should come into and check is diagnose and solve problem. So this is having a lot of community-based problem statement. User will be posting a lot of problems, and then the community will upload those problems along with the solution. So if your problem matches with one of the problem statement listed here, you will definitely get a solution. But nevertheless, if your solutioning is not there, right, you can always raise a new support request. So when you're really stuck with something, right, or you feel that there is a bug in the system, you can raise a support ticket, and one of the support member will contact you and take it to the closure. So let's say there is no answer from the support team, they will point it to the data factory product team, and they will respond to you in some timelines. But the first place to come is to come to data diagnose and solve problems. I will go to properties. So, okay, why I came to properties? Because I want to show you this property. So there might be use cases where you might require to run this data factory, some data factory pipelines using some programming language, right? Let's say you are using a small piece of C# code, and from C# code, let's say you built a web application, and from that web portal, you want to execute a particular pipeline. So when user is clicking on a button, you want to execute a pipeline. So at that point of time, some properties are required, right? So this is one such property. To identify which resource you are pointing to, this fully qualified resource ID, it is nothing but the resource ID. If you see subscription ID, resource group name, and I'm using data factory service. Which data factory I'm using? I'm using demo bits ADF 127. It is basically giving you the entire hierarchy. So some programming languages might ask you to give a resource ID, and you can extract such resource ID using properties. So this is applicable to any resource. Okay, if I go to Azure SQL, I will see another resource ID. If I go to Cosmos DB, I will see another resource ID. So you have to just go to the properties to extract such a property.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of Azure by answering this question. Which of the following web applications can be deployed with Azure? A. ASP.NET, B. PHP, C. WCF, D. All of the above. Comment your answer in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
Logs I explained, but I'll repeat again. So if, there are two types of log, read only and delete log. If I want to make this data factory just read only, I will click on read only, and this data factory becomes read only. So you will not be in a position to modify any properties of this data factory account. And delete is that you will not be able to delete the data factory. This is the delete log. Okay, so you have to simply write do not delete and click on OK, and this is set. I don't have to save it; is automatically saved. Okay, I'll now not be able to delete this data factory. Okay, so let me try to delete them. Okay, I will give this name. Yes, you see deletion failed. Okay, I will not be able to delete because there is a log. So this is to avoid accidental deletes. Okay, it's always good to use these logs rather than not using it maybe later. So there is a use case where if you perform a full deployment, right, there are some resources which does a full deployment, which means delete dropping the resource before recreating. If you don't want to perform those full deployments, right, you can always keep a do not delete log or delete log basically, so that won't delete your data factory resource. Quick start, I mentioned that if there might be cases where you might need to run this data factory from .NET application, so you can make use of Azure SDK for .NET. If you want to run through PowerShell, you can read this documentation. Azure SDK for Python, REST API. If I want to hit on a particular URL and my data factory Python should run, there are a lot of such options. You can just go through the documentation. Okay. And then alerts, metric, diagnostic setting, and logs I will cover in one topic. So just I'll give you a use case. Okay, one of the metric is called as failed pipeline run. So this failed pipeline run along with all other metrics will go into logs, okay, on day-to-day basis. Now using the concept of alerts and diagnostic setting, I will be able to understand that the pipeline has failed and I can trigger alert to the respective team or respective person. So I will make use of that use case later on. Okay. I will go to the overview section and then again click on author and monitor. So once you click on author and monitor, this will open up the data factory workspace. Okay. So there are 4 tabs within the data factory. So you have data factory overview, author, monitor, and manage. Okay. So we have overview, author, monitor, and then manage. So I will give you a problem statement before solving any of these things. Okay. So we will understand all these things by solving a problem instead of just going through them manually, right? I'll solve a problem statement. So this is the storage account that I have in my system. And if you see here in under the blob container, I have one container called as source and another container called as target. Okay, target doesn't have anything at this point of time. Target doesn't have anything. And if I click on source, I have Netflix underscore titles file. So what I will do, I will simply solve a simple prompt statement to transfer this file Netflix titles into target location. Okay, I will solve this very simple exercise. So can anyone tell me what is the first step that I need to do? Anyone? I explained the theoretical concept, so you should be able to answer this.
First we need to connect the source.
Yes, connect to the source using link service. Yes, agreed.
Yes.
Okay, so what I will do, I will click on create link service here, or I can click on new. So once you click on new, just observe the list of sources that is supported by Microsoft. Right? There are a lot of resources which Microsoft supports. And then if later on tomorrow Microsoft adds some more resources, right? You will just see it over here. They may keep on adding list of sources and destinations over here. Okay, coming to the problem statement, we want to connect to our storage account. So I will simply type storage, and then you can see here Azure Blob Storage. So you also see Gen 1 and Gen 2. Because it's a normal storage account, I'm going to use Azure Blob Storage. And naming is very important. So I follow a particular nomenclature. If you like that nomenclature, you can go ahead and use that. Okay. So what I will say ls underscore. Ls is for link services underscore. I will say that it is a storage account. Now which storage account I'm connecting to, I will say demo bits storage account. And now if you see, I was talking about integration runtime also, right? So by default, we are getting one integration runtime, which is auto resolve integration runtime. This is nothing but the Azure integration runtime. If you want to get connected to any of your PaaS instance, right, platform as a service instance, then you need to use Azure integration runtime. So auto resolve integration runtime is nothing but an Azure integration runtime. Click on this, and then scroll down. You have several authentication method like account key. I was explaining about the access key, SAS URL, and all that. You can go ahead and use account key, and from subscription you will be able to list out the subscription. You can list out the account. So we want to point to demo bits account. Right? I selected demo bits account, and it automatically loaded the key. and scroll down and do a test connection before actually creating this link service. Okay, click on create and your link service is created, is in the process of getting created and is created now. Okay, so what should be my second thing? And again, I will have a proper naming convention, DS storage. I will say this as source. Okay, and then I will also say Netflix. Then I will select the link service. So my link service that is created is ls storage demo bits. Now you understand that why I'm so much focused on the naming part, because when I'm selecting it from the drop down, by the look of it itself, I should be able to understand it. Okay, which link service I'm pointing to. So it is very easy to comprehend. And the next thing is, if I'm creating a data set which is of storage account type, then all the related link services will only come up. All the storage based link services will only come up. So you will not be confused that way as well. And as my link service is already pointing to storage account, I will be able to browse my file as well. Click on browse. So again, repeating, there is a small folder option here, right? Folder icon. I will click on this folder option to browse to my file. Okay, and you can see that the container is source and there is no intermediate directory. That's why you don't have to pass anything here. And the file name is netflix.csv. And I know that the first row has a header. I will select this option. If you know that the first row doesn't have a header, you need to uncheck this. That will be treated as a data record. Click on OK. What is my next step? Just pointing to the container option. I don't have to provide the file name. I can provide, but I don't want to provide. I'll just specify the target folder name, and whatever is coming from the source, the same name will be written in the target. So what I will do, I will click on new data set. Okay, I will say storage account again. Click continue, delimited text, continue, and I will name it as ds underscore storage underscore target. Why I'm specifying target is because my container name is target. Don't think that source my source I'm pointing from source to target. Don't think that way. I'm actually referring to my container over here. I mentioned that you don't have to classify data set as source and target. So keep that in mind. And then I will say target underscore folder. I will not leave a file here. And I know that I'm using the same link service. I will select that. First row has a header, and browse. I will select simply target, click on OK. So target is automatically put here, and there is no directory, no file. Click on OK. Okay, my data set is also created. Now, before moving to the next step, what I will do, I will click on publish all, because now you're developing in this data factory, which is where are you developing? You're using a web browser in order to develop this entire resource. So by mistake, if I'm refreshing this browser, the changes will be lost. You will not see these data sets anymore. So on a time-to-time basis, you need to click on publish all. Publish all. What am I publishing? I'm publishing both the data sets that I created. So once you have published it, after that, if you refresh your browser, it will stay permanently. So when you're publishing, it means you're just publishing these relevant objects, like dataset, pipeline, link services to the data factory. Now it is successfully published. Now if I refresh my browser, you will see that the things will be intact. Okay, my things are intact, right? You can see those two datasets. Now observe, if I am creating one more dataset, let's say I'm selecting the same thing, or let me do one thing. I will simply clone the existing dataset by clicking clone. It is faster option. Now I'll not publish, I'll refresh the browser. It still says me this page is asking you to confirm that you want to leave. Information you have entered may not be saved. Leave page. So basically I'm doing a forceful refresh. So now you see that other cloned data set is not available to you anymore, which means that you need to click on publish. I just wanted to explain the importance of publish. You are developing everything in a browser. It makes sense to publish in meanwhile. I will create a pipeline and move data. Yes, that is correct. So let's create a pipeline, new pipeline, and then I will say PL. Okay, PL for pipeline, DS for dataset, LS for link services. Copy file. I'll just name it simple, copy file, and I will also say storage. Within storage account, I'm doing these things. I'll say PL storage, copy file. Okay, then there is so you see there are a lot of activities within it. There are lot of activities. There is copy data, data flow, and you can browse through all these activities. but because it is very new, right, it is difficult to browse to the exact location. So what you can make use of is the text box. Because I want to perform a simple copy from source to target, I can simply type copy, okay, and drag it here in middle. Okay, let's name this copy data. How will you rename this? By putting the name over here, and then I will talk about few more options as well. Timeout, retry interval. Just remind me once more. I will talk about once I execute this pipeline. I will talk about these three things in one go. Let me select source. So obviously source is dataset, right? So I will select DS storage source Netflix. So the naming importance is understood, right? So because the naming is very clear, I'm able to understand and click on the respective dataset. Sync, I will go to sync and then select the appropriate sync also, DS storage target folder. I don't have to do mapping. Mapping makes sense when you want to map from one column to another column. But here I'm simply copying a file. We'll talk about mapping after some time. We are now focused about just transferring one file from one location to another location. Okay. Now I will just publish it before executing the pipeline. I will explain you how will you execute the pipeline. So when you are publishing, right, you can go to this notification icon to check whether it is getting published or not, and it has successfully published. Once it is done, so for development purpose, there is an option called as debug. You see, there is an option called as debug. And before even I execute, I want to show you my storage account. In target, I don't have anything, but in source, I have Netflix underscore title. So I want to move this particular file into the target location. So I will simply run debug. Okay, now you see it. As and when I click on debug, you see an output option over here. And this copy data activity is currently queued. The next, see, first status is queued. It means the run has not started. It is trying to acquire compute from the integration runtime. Once it extracts the resource, right, then it goes to in progress state. After in progress, it can go to either succeeded or failed. If I have done some mistake, obviously we go to failed status, but because everything was correct, I got a succeeded message. Okay, because it is successful, you can just click on the details to see what has happened. Files read, yeah, one file was read. Files written, one file is written. And how much data was written? 3.33 KB. And it also showcases you what is the throughput. It's a very small file, hence you see that it took some time, 1.1 KB per second. Okay, now I will go to my storage account. So earlier, this was the earlier status, right? In target, there was nothing. I will refresh this over here, and you will see Netflix underscore title file here. Makes sense, right? The timing you can see 8:53 Indian time, and currently it is 8:53 only. Okay, and to just quickly browse and understand it, what is there in the file, what you have to do, you cannot browse it here. So you can scroll down, go to containers, go to target container. Here the same file, right? Click on this file and go to edit. And you can see the mini version of this, the same file. The best option is to download and see the file, because you will have a lot of editors in hand. Right? You can see this CSV in your Excel file, and there will be a lot of options. Okay, so I just did a simple copy of file from source container to target container. So here is link service. So this is very much clear, right? If we want to get connected to a source system, then our destination system, we can create this link services. Integration runtime. So by default, I did not create this, right? So by default, we are getting an Azure integration runtime. You see this? The name of this is auto resolved integration runtime. What is the type of integration runtime? It is an Azure integration runtime. So if you want to get connected to the PaaS system, like storage account, like SQL system, then you can make use of this auto resolved integration runtime. But I mentioned that if you want to get connected to a different integration runtime, where you want to connect to on-premise ecosystem, then you can make use of self-hosted integration. How will you make use of self-hosted? Click on this, continue, click on self-hosted again, continue, and let's say I'm saying self-hosted. I'll just tell you the steps, you can take it offline. Okay, click on create.
Hey guys, if you're looking for an end-to-end training in Azure Data Factory, Intellipaat provides an Azure Data Factory certification training for DP200 and DP201, and you can check out those details in the description box below. Now let's continue this session.
Okay, it is created successfully, not finished yet. So we are trying to connect to an on-premise ecosystem. So what you need to do, you have to download. So let's go with option 2. We don't want to do automatic process, we'll do very much manual. So let's say that you have a SQL Server system which is present in your on-premise in a particular virtual machine. So download and install integration runtime in that particular virtual machine. Once you download and install and you open that application, it will ask you to provide a key. You provide either key 1 or key 2. So let's say I'm providing key 1 in that application. After 2 minutes of time, okay, after 2 minutes of time, this will be running. So you have to download, install, plus provide one of the key, and then wait for 2-3 minutes of time. This status would turn to running, which means that my data factory would be able to talk to that virtual machine. So that virtual machine, I can read file system, I can read the SQL Server. If there is Oracle in that same virtual machine, I will be able to read. That's the purpose of self-hosted integration runtime. Then I'll again talk about Azure integration runtime. So we already talked about auto resolve, right? So that is nothing but Azure integration runtime only. But just see the options. If I click on Azure again, there are some options, right? Like if I want to select a particular location where I want to run all these things, right? So I can select the location as well. So if my customer base is US, I keep everything in US, and I can also keep US location in this East US location in within the integration runtime. It means that when my data is getting moved, I am 100% sure that that will be moved within East US itself. And I did not talk about data flow. When I'm talking about data flow, I'll talk about these three things. Okay, so okay, I'll give you the exercise. Before going to the exercise, I will tell you how to subscribe to a subscription. Okay, I will explain the sign up process now. So what you will do, because you might be you may not have still created a subscription yet. So what you can do, so just provide portal.azure.com. I will just ping this in the chat window. I'm explaining the sign up process. Okay, go to portal.azure.com, then do a sign up. You can provide your personal email accounts like Yahoo, Outlook, Live.com, any personal email account, okay, Gmail account, any account. And once you're in the process of sign up, you will be asked to choose a subscription. So you will land up to a page which I will be showing right now. So during the process of sign up, you will come to a particular page, which will be this. Okay. So you will see three types of subscription types, right? Free trial subscription, pay as you go, and Azure for students. Don't deal with Azure for students unless you are an university student at this point of time that university has tie up with Microsoft. Until that point, you will not be able to use this particular thing. This gives you some free products for 12 months of time, but this is for university students. So what option is left to us? We have free trial and pay as you go subscription. So obviously, because you are in the learning phase, go with free trial subscription. It will give you $200 of free credits for the 30 days of period. So if you're in India, it is something around 13,000 INR. Okay, 13,000 INR. In US, it is $200. So you will get $200 of free credits over 30 days of time. So what does that mean? So if I'm exhausting $200 in 10 days of time, then the subscription status would turn disabled. Or let's say that I'm not exhausting the money, but 30 days has gone, then also the subscription would turn disabled. So you will select this particular option. As and when you select this option, you will be asked to you put the credit card details. You can safely put your credit card details. Okay, once you do that, uh, based on your location, if you're in India, 1 rupee will be deducted. If you're in US, $1 will be deducted, and it will be reverted back as well. It is just to check if your card is legitimate. If your card is legitimate, it will just successfully validate that your card is valid, and it will allow you to complete the sign up process. So the money will be back. Okay, you can just read out the terms and conditions over there, but that is the process. You don't have to worry from free trial perspective. Okay, but at some point of time, you have to make a decision, right? Because you are investing time on this Azure subscription or maybe Azure product, right? So once the free trial is over, what next? So there are two options, right? Either you can again continue with free trial. So you cannot use the same account. Okay, you have to create another account, another personal account, another credit card. Only then you will be able to again use free trial account. That is another option. Second option, the best option is to go with pay as you go. It means that your credit card is already linked, right? So you can go with pay as you go, and the billing will actually start. But it's not an easy decision, right, to go to pay as you go, because you are already skeptical, because credit card is linked. You will be little skeptical to move to pay as you go, because every billing some or the other amount might appear. So whenever I talk about any of the resource, just have a practice to understand the costing model. Okay, I will, after this, once you do this sign up process, I will also explain you where exactly you can understand the costing. Once you're comfortable with costing, you can actually take a decision and move to pay as you go. So while you are in free trial, right, try understanding the costing perspective. Once you do that, you can actually easily move to pay as you go subscription. So that is the entire process. And second scenario you might think in mind, will my subscription automatically move to pay as you go from free trial to pay as you go? No, it will not happen unless you provide the instruction. It is not going to automatically move from free trial to pay as you go. So once it is expired, you don't have to worry from the credit card perspective. If you're so much skeptical, then you can remove your credit card from after using this free trial subscription. So that is the sign up process. So in this problem statement, I was trying to transfer file from source to destination. Right? This Netflix titles file from source to destination. What if I want to upload a different file using the same pipeline that I have created? Right? So you have to understand few more options there. Now let's do one thing. I will upload another file. So just give me 1 second. I will identify the file and will directly upload those files. Okay, I've uploaded a new file as well, customer.txt. Then I'll go back to the data factory. This is static copying, right? Now I will make it a little more dynamic. I'll say dynamically copy. Okay, so what I will do, I will create a new parameter called as file name. So whenever you create a parameter and you click on debug, right, the first thing it will ask is to pass a file name. Without passing this, you will not be able to execute the pipeline. So that's the reason, because we don't know, right? While executing this pipeline, I'm not sure what is my file name. Okay, again repeating the problem statement. Earlier, I copied a file from source to target. Okay, in very static manner, right? I chose a particular file called as Netflix titles and I moved the same thing to target location. But this time I'm creating a dynamic copy, which means during the runtime, I'm going to understand that this is the file, and then I will transfer that file from source to destination. So I'm creating this parameter so that during runtime, I'll pass a file name and that file name should be moved from source to target. That is my intention. Now what I did was I made a clone of the existing pipeline and I renamed this pipeline to dynamic copy. That is what I did. Post that, I created a parameter called as file name. Okay, post that, what should I do? So I have a copy data activity and I have source and sink, right? And this source is dedicated totally to Netflix file. So I'll not make use of this data set at all. So I will go to this data set. Okay, this is the data set which is pertaining to Netflix file, right? I will create a clone of this data set. And I will name this as dynamic file. Okay, so just for my interpretation, I'm naming it as dynamic file. And then I will remove this. And then there is something called as parameters. So I'll create a new dataset parameter and I will name it as dataset parameter. Sorry, file name, dataset file name. Go back to connection. And then in the file name, right, instead of passing Netflix underscore title, I'll pass this parameter name that I have created. So to add this, click on add dynamic content and then search for the same name, dataset file name. Click on this and you saw, right, this is automatically formulated. So what is going to happen when I'm going to run my pipeline PL storage dynamic copy? We already have a pipeline parameter. And when I'm running, I will obviously pass the pipeline parameter, let's say customer.txt. When I'm passing customer.txt in this particular pipeline, right, in this particular pipeline, right, that has to cascade into this data set. Okay, where will it cascade to? That pipeline parameter will go to dataset parameter, and that dataset parameter is being referred to as a file name. Okay, I'll go back here, copy data activity, and under source, I'm going to change this to dynamic file. And because this dynamic file dataset has its own dataset parameter, I will be prompted to provide a value here. You see, right? Dataset file name. Now, the link you are able to understand it. So I have created a dataset parameter. Now, because I'm using that same dataset which has its own parameter, I'm being asked to provide the dataset file name here. So what I would pass, I will pass the pipeline parameter into the dataset file name parameter. Click on add dynamic content and then type in file name, click on file name, and you can see this expression is automatically again evaluated. It is the pipeline based parameter, which is file name. Click on finish. So during the runtime, if I'm passing a file name called as customer.txt, so that same name, file name, will go into dataset file name. And then if I refer to this dataset file name, right, where is it? It is within the file property, right? It is the file, add dynamic content, dataset file. Once I do that, so the sync is still the same thing. It is just pointing to the target folder, right? It still holds good. I will click on publish all to save all the changes before running this pipeline. Okay, publishing is succeeded. I will click on debug now. And now you see, right, because the pipeline has its own parameter, is asking me to provide the file name value. So now I will provide the name customer.txt. I will copy this and paste it over here and click on OK. And you will see the output. Copy is in queued status. It is in progress and it is succeeded. I will go back to the storage account. So this is there in my source container, right? So I will go to my target and I will be able to see that customer file is present now. The timing you can see over here. Okay, so I have made it more dynamic in nature, right? Now let's say I want to pass another file. So I will pass Netflix underscore title. Okay, the time is 8:59 in the target, it will change. And click on OK. Refresh queue to in progress and then it will go to succeeded. Yeah, it is succeeded. Now if I go back to target and refresh this, the time would change. Yeah, you see, right? Netflix file, the time is changed to 9:33. Now I will again repeat the same thing. I hope it is clear, but I will repeat the same thing what I did. My goal is to dynamically decide during the runtime what is the file name. So to do that, I have to create a pipeline parameter called as file name. I created file name parameter. Once I did that, I have to pass this file name into my dataset, right? How will I pass my pipeline parameter to the dataset parameter? So when I created this dataset, I first created a parameter, dataset parameter called as dataset file name. And where did I place this dataset file name? In the file property. So this is container, this is intermediate directory and the file name. So what am I expecting? During runtime, my pipeline will pass a value to dataset file name property, which is used in my file name value. So that's how I'm using this, right? Under copy data activity, if I go to source and I've made use of the same parameterized data set, it is prompting me to provide dataset file name, which is nothing but the file name of the parameter. And sync is pointing to the target folder. So that's why you see that this has succeeded. Now it is very much dynamic compared to the first pipeline where I'm able to pass any kind of file which I want to, right? I will unmute you guys to understand if there is any questions on this aspect, or you can post your questions in the chat window itself. So by default, it will replace the existing file at destination. Yes, Vinith, it is going to. Okay. So what I will do, I'll just make a copy of this pipeline. Okay, cloning this pipeline, and then we'll rename this pipeline to copy. Yeah, copy. If not exist. Okay. So this copy activity will come in a while. So what I have to do, I'll just repeat the entire flow once more. I will first check if the file is present in the target or not. If the file is not present in the target, I would make a conditioning and then would copy the file. If the file is not present, then I'm not going to copy the file. That is what my logic is.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of Azure by answering this question. What are the different cloud deployment models? A. Private cloud. B. Public cloud. C. Hybrid cloud. D. All of the above. Comment your answer in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
So first I need to ensure that the file is present in target or not, right? So what I have to do, I have to create a data set for the target file. So at this point of time, we have a data set which is pointing to the target folder, but I have to create a data set which is pointing to the target file. So I will make a clone of this. Okay, I will name it as target file. Okay, and then I will create a dataset parameter like I created earlier. Go to connection and use the same parameter. Click on finish. So this is done. Now I will go to the new pipeline, which is this, and then there is a activity called as get metadata. So see, as and when I'm solving some of the use cases, right, you will come to know more and more number of activities. So I'm extracting get metadata activity. I will say that check file existence. Okay, and then I would use a data set which I just created, which is the target file. Target file. And obviously this target file dataset has its own parameter, right? So I will put the file name parameter from the parameter pipeline. So what I would do, I will just type in file name, and then the pipeline parameter would cascade into this dataset. And scroll down, there is one more important property called as field list. So click on new, scroll down once more, click on this drop down and see what are the items. So I will be using exist property because I want to check if the file is present or not, right? That's why I'm making use of exist. There are some use cases where I can iterate a list of items using child items over here, child items. But for this use case, I'm making use of exist property just to cross check if the file is present or not present. So, and I'll explain you one more property about this data factory. If I want to run just this particular activity, right, get metadata, and I don't want to run copy data activity during the process of debugging, I will just check this over here. You know, right, in SSIS you used to place a debug point. I will call the same thing debug until this point. Debug, and then I will pass a file name. Let's say I'm passing a random file name which is not present, obviously, and then click on OK. Refresh the output. Keep refreshing. Go to this output section. See, I'll explain you how to read the output of one activity. Right? So there is an output, there is an input. So let's go and check what is the output. And you see the first property is exist false. So it means the file name that I provided doesn't exist in the target location, which is exist false. Now close this. I will debug this once more, and I will pass customer.txt, which is present in our target. Right? Click on OK, and then let's read out the result once more. Okay, and then I will open the output to see that exist value is true because the file is present in the system. But what should I do? Once I check this get metadata, I should do some conditioning, right, before copying. I cannot see why right now the flow is like even if the values exist true or false, I'm making a copy. Right? I cannot do that. I have to do a condition before copying the data. So I will disconnect this and then we'll place another activity called as if condition. Okay, I will connect the get metadata with if condition. Okay, and then we'll place. I'll just cut this and paste it within the true activity. So there is if condition, there is true and false, right? I will copy that activity here. Copy file activity will be here. But now I have to make use of this output, right? The get metadata output. I need to make use of this property in order to understand if I want to execute the true activity or false activity. So click on this if condition. I will name this if condition as if file exists. Okay. Then go to activity. There is an expression box. So click on this expression, add dynamic content. Now I'm going to use the output of one activity in here. So scroll down or just type in check. Okay, so my activity name is check file existence. Click on this. So we formulated till output. Okay, click on finish. I'll just formulate this once more. So check the output. So what is it? Under output, you have a property called as exist whose value is true at this point of time. I'll copy this and go back to this expression, and you see under output, I just need to put dot exist. Got it, right? So I'm using the output of check file existence activity. So this is automatically formulated. I'm just making use of the output, one of the output property, which is exist. And because it is giving me a Boolean value, right, of true or false, I can make use of the same. I don't have to do equals and what is the value? I don't have to do, because anyhow this expression is giving me a value of true or false. So click on finish. Okay. Now can anyone tell me what is the incorrect thing that I made? Can anyone point me where exactly I did correct thing? So see again, I am trying to read the output of get metadata. The value would be exist true or exist false. Then in the if condition, I'm putting this expression. Okay, this expression activity check file existence dot output of exist. And then if the value is true, I'm going to copy the file here. So what is the mistake that I have done here? Now, why did I place a not? Because when the file is present, it will say that it is true, and not of true is false, right? So I am not trying to copy anymore. But if the file is not present, the exist value would be true. At that point of time, I want to execute, sorry, the exist value would be false, and not of false is true is when I am executing this copy data activity. Okay, now I'll just publish it before executing the pipeline. Okay, so while it is in publishing mode, right, I can still go ahead and click on debug. I will say customer.txt. Click on OK. So customer file is present in the target location. So ideally, if condition will give a value of false and it should not execute, right? So let's see what happens. It's done. So you say that the check file existence value is giving me a value of true over here, true. And because it is true, not of true is false, right? So it evaluated the if condition but did not copy the file because it evaluated to false. Now see here, I will try to execute another thing. Okay, I will delete this customer.txt and then run the same thing again. I'm deleting this file and we'll go back and run the same thing with the same parameter customer.txt. You see, right? Now the third activity came in, which is copy file. Because this evaluated to false, not of false is true, and hence I'm executing the copy file activity. And it is successful. Now if I go to the target location, refresh this, I'm able to see customer.txt. Okay, this is one another use case within storage account. If you can play with this expression, and based on what is the outcome, you can decide how you want to orchestrate your data movement. So this is what I wanted to cover on storage account. One more important thing which I didn't cover yet. I told that I will cover that. So I will just explain you one of the important property. Okay. So if I go to the general tab of any activity, I can go any pipeline and choose that copy data activity, any activity. There are three properties, right? Timeout, retry, and retry interval. So I'll tell you what it is. Let's say that I know, right, when something is getting copied, I will roughly understand that okay, it should not take more than 5 minutes of time. But the default timeout property is set to 7 days of time. If let's say on an odd day, if it gets stuck for no reason, right, then if it gets stuck for 7 days of time, which is not good, right? So what I would do, if I know that it is going to take maximum of 5 minutes of time, and just to be very much pessimistic in nature, I will set it 10 minutes of time. So I know that it will take maximum of 5 minutes of time. So I will set it to 10 minutes. So the format is the date, days, dot, hours, dot, minutes, dot, seconds. So I'm setting it to 10 minutes at this point of time. If you want to set it to some days, you can do like this, 6 days, 0 days is what I'm basically. At the same time, there is some property called as retry. Let's say currently the retry is 0, I'm making it to 1. What does it mean? If copy data activity fails for some reason, it is going to retry once more. That is the meaning of retry. But it will retry after waiting for 30 seconds of time. That is retry interval. Okay, this is the timeout, retry, and retry interval. Now what I will do, I will try to solve a simple problem statement of copying data from source database to target database. Okay, now we'll go one level up in Data Factory, and later on will solve an incremental problem statement of what is the infrastructure that I have. Now I will go to my SQL Server instance. Let me switch over. So I will select SQL Server. This is my SQL Server account, and if you go to the databases, right, I have two databases. One is SourceDB and another is TargetDB. Okay, so let's assume that SourceDB is maintained by the customer, and I'm retrieving the data from customer and loading the data into my target database. That is what we are doing here. Okay. For the simulation case, what I have done, I have kept SourceDB and TargetDB separately within the same SQL Server box. Okay, so what I'll show you a few things in SourceDB and TargetDB before approaching to the problem statement. So there are some data which is getting published on a day-to-day basis, and it is published by customer. I have to retrieve in an incremental manner into my target database. Target database, I have full control, but source database, I can only read the information. Okay, having said that, we'll not be able to create anything in the source database. Obviously, it is maintained by customer. How can we create it? Now, if I click on the source DB, right, I will open one more instance as well. I will open target DB as well. Okay. Now go to query editor and type in the password. Okay, my IP needs to be added, so I will go and add my IP over to start set server file. If you are not able to get connected to your system, right, it means that you have to add your IP. So one rule is you can click on plus client IP and your IP will be added like this. You can see here, right, your IP is added. At the same time, you have to say allow Azure services and resources to access the server. So by default, it might be no. You have to set it to yes. If you say yes, then your external system like Data Factory, Cosmos DB, or Databricks streaming analytics would be able to talk to the SQL Server system. If it is no, they will not. Those systems would not be able to talk or interact. Click on save. So why I added my IP is that because my machine is my router's IP needs to be added, and SQL will understand that okay, it is coming from a trusted source. Okay, I'll go back to source DB and then go to query editor. I will type in my password now. I should not get any error anymore. Click on OK, and I am connected to my system. And similarly, I will do the same thing for target DB as well. I want to showcase the entire scenario, right? So go to query editor and type in your password, and I'm connected. Okay, now what is customer providing me? So if I see here, there is a table called as orders. If I execute this, I'm able to see certain number of orders over here. I have total of 16 orders till date. So far customer has published till 2020-01 and 11. Okay, at the same time, what I would do, I will try to simulate some scenario. Okay, so you will see here, there is no record in this target system yet. So if you see here, there is no record in orders table, right? I see 0 number of records over here. Okay, so what are we going to solve? We are going to push data from source database, which is maintained by my customer, and I will load it into the target database. So it is very easy, right? If I use a copy data activity, put source as orders and destination as order, I'm going to put the entire data from source to destination. But our goal is not that, right? We want to do it in an incremental manner. So for that, we have created another table called as watermark table. So this table will help me to maintain the timestamps. So whenever I'm loading the data for the first time, right, so I'm choosing the first date in the system, which is 1900-0101. Because we are dealing with orders table, right? Whenever you are going to do this exercise for the first time, place the entry as orders and place the first date. Because all the orders would be definitely greater than this date, right? So if you see my source database, there is a timestamp entry insert date time. You are 100% sure, right? Whatever date it is in this set of orders would be definitely greater than 1900. So this is my initial configuration setup. What I would do is I will put orders as the table name, and I would start from 1900. Means I'm copying fully for the first time. And then let's say I'm loading this data from source to destination. What is the maximum timestamp here? It is 11/1/2020. So let's say I have loaded the data from source to destination successfully. The next thing that I need to do is to update this value, which is the maximum timestamp, in this watermark table over here. So that now, let's say it is updated to 2020-01-11, right? Now, if I run the same pipeline once more, it has to start from not 1900, it has to start from 2020-01-11. So now you understand that you are now getting the incremental data set. You're not getting the full data set. That is the purpose of maintaining those checkpoints, right, in watermark table. So I will explain it with a diagram as well. So let's go to Data Factory. Let's say I'm creating a pipeline, which I will call this as PL copy orders incrementally. Okay, I've created this pipeline, new pipeline. Now I'm going to draw the diagram before when explaining this. So what I'm going to do. So this is what I am going to do. Okay, this is a lookup activity. I have not talked about lookup activity. I will talk about that. This is a copy data activity. This is a store processor. So what am I, before copying the data, I need two information. Okay, watermark value, yes. Anything else which I need to bring? Yes, watermark table, watermark value will give me the start date. Yes, end time as well. End time is the maximum timestamp which is present in the source database. So what I'm going to do, I'm referring old watermark, I'm going to refer to the old watermark, I'm going to refer to the new watermark. So old watermark is nothing but the watermark timestamp. So if something is there in the watermark table, it means that the data has loaded till that point of time. Now when I'm running the pipeline again, I have to start from that point. And that's why I'm calling it as old watermark. And how am I going to extend the new watermark? This new is nothing but the maximum value. Whenever I'm performing the load rate, I will calculate the maximum date value within the orders table. So the maximum at this point of time is 11/1/2020, right? So the same thing, the max of insert date time from the source orders is nothing but the new watermark. So now I got the old watermark, I got the new watermark. Copy data activity has source and think, right? Think will definitely point just to the table. Source, I have to evaluate the query before loading it. So I will do select star from orders where insert date time greater than old watermark and insert date time less than equal to new watermark. Once this copy data activity is successful, I'm going to execute a stored procedure which will update the watermark value with the new entry, what we got in the lookup. Okay. So the first two things I need to do is to extract lookup activity, right? I'll extract lookup. Again, one more lookup. One will be for old watermark, one will be for new watermark. Okay, over here. Then I'll scroll down. So you understood the value, what you should put in timeout, retry, retry interval. I'm not modifying these things, but if you have the fair understanding, I'm fine with it. Then go to settings. So we obviously need a data set to refer to the old watermark, which is there in our watermark table, right? So what I would do, I will have to click on manage and then select link services and then click on new to create link service. Right? Before even creating data set, I need to create link service. What link service I'm creating? I'm creating a SQL based link service, Azure SQL Database. Click on continue and then I will select ls underscore SQL underscore source db. So this is something which is maintained by customer, not me. So I will have read access on this. Okay, so when you are trying to put your watermark table, you cannot think about putting that in source database because you have just read access on source database. Now let me try to fetch the server, okay, and the database, source database. And authentication it is asking me, so I know my SQL authentication username and password. So this is Azure SQL, right? So I'm doing it in this manner. When you're trying to connect to on-premise ecosystem, right, and to your on-premise SQL server, you have the prerequisite is to have a SQL authentication because end of the day you are going to put a username and password. You can do that accordingly. I will test the connection to just be sure if the connection is going to be successful, and it is so. I'll create one. Similarly, I will create another link service to point to the target system. Okay, target database. So again, I will say SQL database, continue, and the naming is important. ls underscore SQL underscore target db. Why is it flow? Then select the respective subscription. server name, database name, SQL authentication username and password. Test the connection before creating. Okay. So I will create one more data set. Okay, again refer it to SQL database, then click on this, click on continue, give a name called as ds underscore SQL underscore source db underscore orders. Okay, and then select the link service before choosing the appropriate orders. Okay, click on OK. This is just one part. Then I will go back to the pipeline and will arrange this way. So in the old watermark, as you rightly mentioned, that old watermark will point to the watermark table. Okay, so I will go to settings, select the data set, which is watermark, right? Watermark table. So you can even search it with this filter criteria. And then I will specify a query. Okay, what will be my query? Just observe here. I will go to the target database and I will say where table name equal to orders. This is what I will get, right? And at the same time, I will just name it as okay. I'll just copy this and then paste it in the here over here. Okay, I pasted it and I can do a simple preview to understand if I have done correctly. So you can see, right? I'm getting table name as orders and watermark value as watermark value. Now for the new watermark, I'm going to obviously refer it to the orders table, right? Source DB orders, the first one. And then again do a query. Okay, and then we are going to extract the maximum value, isn't it? So what I would do, I will go to the target database and then select max of insert date time from order state. So I have to do this in source. Okay, I will go to source database. I'll just cut this and paste it in the source database, and let's see what is the result. I'm getting a result, right? So I will also at the same time I will modify the alias because there is no alias currently as new watermark value. I'll copy this, execute once to cross check if it is fine or not. Yes, it is fine. Go back to Data Factory and paste the query here. Okay, I'll just do a quick preview to understand if it is correct or not. Yes. Now, if I run this, you will be able to see the same thing in the output window. So yeah, I'll publish and at the same time I will run this. Yeah, click on debug. Yeah, both of the activities succeeded, right? So if I choose the old watermark output, I'm able to see under output, under first row, I'm able to see table name as well as watermark value. Now, if I select the new watermark output, I will be able to see first row and new watermark value. So basically, I got a date range, right? The from date would be this value, and the to date would be this particular value. So I have those contexts in mind. Now the next thing is to execute a copy data activity in an incremental manner. Right? So I will just name this activity as copy orders. And then I will connect these two things, which means only when both of these things are successful, right, it will execute copy data. And I'm doing this parallelly. There is no point that you set this up sequentially, right? Because these two things can be executed in parallel. So go to the copy data activity, select source, and then select the source data set, which is source db underscore order, which we have already created. And then I have to formulate the query. So what is that query? Let's go to the source database. So select star from orders where insert date time is greater than, I will just put for the timing 0101, and insert date time less than equals, and I will put whatever value is there currently, I will put that. So I should get all those 16 entries, right? Let's see if I'm getting 16 or 15. Okay, 15. So I will do 12. Okay, I will get all the 16 entries over here. So I will copy this, the same thing, and paste it in my query window here. Okay, you are able to understand. You would also write the same query language like this, T-SQL query. But I have to, instead of putting this hard coded, I have to extract it from old watermark and over here from new watermark. So just remove this portion and over here as well. I just want you to be sure that this is the query that we are going to write, right? So put the cursor in between the single quote and then click on add dynamic content, then search for old watermark. Where is that query? Okay, I'll cancel it and then copy it again and add dynamic content, paste it here, place the cursor in between of this code and then search for old watermark. Okay, before even I replace this, just place a @ and curly braces. Okay, @ and curly braces. Within this, you place the cursor and click on lookup old watermark value. Okay, I have clicked on that. So you can see that activity.lookup.output dot first row. So if you remember, we had a property called as first row. Within the first row property, we had watermark value. And then similarly, place the @ and the curly braces and come in between and place new watermark value. And then under output, we had first row dot new watermark value. Okay, just remember what I have done. Output dot first row dot watermark value from old lookup. Finish, and then go back here. Just check the same thing. Output dot first row dot watermark value. For the new one, I did output dot first row dot new watermark. So I'm not remembering anything basically. I'm using what is visible to you also. So I have formulated the source query. Okay. I have formulated the source. Now let me go to the sink. So I have to select the target table also. Right? We have not yet created any data set for sink dataset. So click on new and then select SQL Database. And then select the link service as target DB, select the table as orders, and click on OK. So now go to the mapping, import schema. I'll just give a random value because the query expects value, right? The parameters, right? The lookup input, the old watermark and new watermark. That's why I'm providing a random value. And click on OK. It will import the schemas. Yeah, it has imported the schemas right over here. Okay, it has imported all these schemas. Scroll down, make it visible, and then there is one more activity called a stored procedure. This is just to execute the stored procedure. So what is the intention for us? We want to update the watermark value, right? I'll say update watermark value and go to settings, choose link service. To select the stored procedure, you don't need a data set, you just need a link service. So I know that one of the stored procedure is present in target database. I will select one and select the watermark. Okay, set watermark. What I will do, I will just showcase you this particular stored procedure, SP set watermark. It is a very simple stored procedure. Want to expand this one?
Hey guys, if you're looking for an end-to-end training in Azure Data Factory, Intellipaat provides an Azure Data Factory certification training for DP200 and DP201, and you can check out those details in the description box below. Now let's continue this session.
Okay, you can see here create procedure name. It is taking two parameters, which is table name and the new time. Once it is provided, I'm simply using an update watermark table, set watermark value equal to incoming new time parameter, where table name equal to incoming table name parameter. It is a simple short procedure. Okay. Now I will go back and then would click on import to import the parameters of this SP. So now you see, right, both the parameters came in. So what is my new time? The new time is going to be the new watermark value, right? Because old watermark was already loaded earlier. Now I'm because copy data activity executed the orders from old to new. Now I have to update the watermark value to the new one, so that next time when I'm executing, my start date is the whatever is there in watermark. Now what I will do, I'll add dynamic content and we'll say new watermark. Click on this dot first row dot new watermark value. Click on finish. And at the same time, this table name property is also present in the old watermark output, right? So if you see here, it is the table name property. So instead of hard coding, I will directly pull it from this particular parameter. So I will go back and select the value, add dynamic content, and then we'll filter out to table name, sorry, not table name, old watermark dot first row dot table name. Click on finish. My pipeline is built. I will publish and will run the pipeline just to be sure that we are having no orders at this point of time, and the watermark table has a value of 1900, okay, in the target date. Now if I run this pipeline, click on debug.
Just a quick info, guys. Test your knowledge of Azure by answering this question. Which of the following web applications can be deployed with Azure? A. ASP.NET, B. PHP, C. WCF, D. All of the above. Comment your answer in the comment section below. Subscribe to Intellipaat to know the right answer. Now, let's continue with the session.
Okay, this is in the process of debug. The pipeline is executing. So if you see this queue status, right, what it is doing behind the scene is trying to acquire resources from the integration runtime. That's what it is busy. Okay, so it has actually succeeded, plus the copy data has also succeeded, and watermark value is also succeeded. Now let's see what is the old watermark. Old watermark is 1900, which is expected. What is my new watermark? The maximum value of orders, right, from the source database, which is 11/1/2020. So we had around 16 records in total, right? So if I click on this details button, I am able to see rows read was 16 and rows written is also 16. And it also gives you picture about how much amount of data is read, how much amount of data is written. And then what am I updating? If you see the input parameters, I'm passing this to new value, which is 2020-0111 and orders. So that the query is update watermark table, set new time equal to, set watermark value equal to this, where table name equal to orders. That is what is happening in the stored procedure. Now if I execute this particular first this one, right, what is the new watermark value? That is 2020-0111, right? It is now updated, and I should see 16 orders in total, and I'm able to see 16 orders. Now the incremental problem statement, right? Yes, this is for the first time I'm able to load the data set fully from source to destination. Now what if the customer is trying to insert a new entry here, right? So I will do insert into orders values, and I will pass 17, 15, C4, C5, 11, 11, and the date will pass, which is 2020. What is today's date? 21. Okay, let me put 2020 only, 01, 12. Okay, just I'm trying to follow the same sequence. I will run this. One row is inserted, and if I run this query, right, I should be able to see 17 records now. The latest record being this one, 2020-0102. Now, without doing anything, I will execute the pipeline. You should be able to see that only one record will be copied, and that will prove the incremental problem dataset, problem statement. Okay, let's see what is the old watermark. Old watermark is the old value 2020-0111, which was there in watermark table. And what is my new watermark? Should be 12, right? Yes, it is 12. 2020-0112. And copy data activity, yes, one row was read, one row was written, which proves that it is solving an incremental problem statement. And then it is updating the new time to 12/1/2020. Now if I execute this order thread, I should be able to see 17 records in total. Yes, I'm able to see. And over here, I will be able to see the latest watermark value.
Hey guys, if you're looking for an end-to-end training in Azure Data Factory, Intellipaat provides an Azure Data Factory certification training for DP200 and DP201, and you can check out those details in the description box below.